Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Becoming Sound podcast, and this is Oversharing with Shannon, and I'm Krista.
I'm Shannon. Hello.
And welcome. Today, we are going to have a little conversation about, honestly, I don't even know what to call it, relationships with siblings and how we grow up in the same house and yet our experiences are really different. Our relation to them, like as an adult child, how we showed up then and how we're maybe holding on to some stuff still, or how we process those feelings and how we kind of work through that. And I haven't talked about this a lot about my brother. I think because he's passed away, it's been a long time now. And I have certain blocks, I think, and I have things that I'm still trying to process after all these years. And so I didn't really know how to approach the topic, but I knew I wanted to talk about it. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Is that you want to?
Yeah. Well, you know what? This topic came up actually a couple of months ago when we had done an episode. It was the 21 questions episode.
Oh, right.
And Krista, one of the questions I had asked Krista was, real lighthearted question. What was the worst moment of your life? We talked, I believe, probably about your dad. No, it was telling your kids that you guys were divorcing.
It was. And then,
which is, of course, awful, like terrible.
100%.
But then the next day,
yeah,
Krista reached out to me and she said, I feel there's like this feeling in me that I maybe a missed opportunity, or maybe I feel bad because actually what I wanted to say was this. And then for whatever reason, you didn't go there.
Yeah.
And then afterwards was like, I feel like that should have been my answer, because it is a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
And we said, you know what, let's circle back to that. It may be down the road, maybe we'll have a conversation about siblings or whatever, and maybe that will be your opportunity. And so, yeah, that's how we got here. And Krista says, you know what, I think maybe it's time to talk about him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of situations where I could say, oh, well, that was probably the worst moment of my life. It's really hard in the moment to pinpoint those, because if you have deep feelings about things and certain instances and certain traumas, it's really hard to just pick one out of the hat. But I have to honestly say
that's pretty bad. We're like, God, I have so many traumas. Which one?
Yeah, well, I mean,
worst.
I didn't mean it really like that, but it's like, I think growing up in dysfunction, you have a few, right? And so, but honestly, I have a really easy time talking about my brother. Like I really do. But for some reason on this podcast, I really haven't addressed it. And really, that was probably the most difficult thing I've been through is my brother's passing, right? It was traumatic, and he died as a result of a house fire. And so that is very traumatic in itself, on top of, the injuries he sustained and then passing away, a few days later. But living through that was very, very traumatic. And sometimes the topic comes up about fire or house fire or whatever. And I don't usually like offer it up, but if it comes up, sometimes I'll say, oh yeah, or a sibling conversation comes up and I say, yeah, well, my brother passed and people asked, and I have no problem telling them. And I kind of tell them a little bit about the story, and they're mortified because it is such a traumatic experience, right? And for my whole family. And so I think that sometimes it's just easier to not talk about it. And but we're not going to talk about how he passed. What I really want to talk about is, and I think some of the stuff that I haven't talked about is because it was really hard for me to talk about the feelings I had, not even surrounding his death, but the feelings I had on growing up with him as a sibling and my brother and sister. And I don't really talk a lot about my sister. I love her, and we are still existing together on this planet, and I'm so grateful for that. But it was a very different dynamic in my family. I was the oldest of
Mhm.
three, and my brother and sister were twins.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times growing up, I felt like I was the outside person. Being the firstborn and growing up in an environment with chaos and difficulties and stuff like that, um, you take on a lot of responsibility as the
Yeah.
firstborn. Like you have a lot on your shoulders. You're trying to manage all the stuff. You feel like you have to control the situations even at a very young age. We've talked a lot about that kind of stuff and the different kind of coping mechanisms and survival strategies that you adopt for sure to survive. And on top of that, if you have younger siblings, you feel like you have to take care of them and protect them
Yeah.
and then and that's what I did and we got along great. And as I became a teenager and my anger level and my resentment level started to build, unfortunately my brother and sister kind of got caught in that. And I was angry for a lot of reasons at my dad and my mom and then I was angry at my brother and sister because they had each other,
Yeah.
right? And that separated us. So it wasn't like it was just me and another sibling. They really protected each other and they really were super close and it's amazing. But that left me and there's a 3-year gap, right?
Yeah.
3 and a little bit. And, yeah, so that left me feeling very alone a lot,
Mhm.
and then as I became a teenager, it left me feeling very resentful, right?
Yeah.
And really, it's not targeted towards them, but I think my anger and all of that stuff kinda come out
Mhm.
towards them, and so when you're a teenager, you fight with your siblings. Like, who doesn't fight, right? Like, even in the best of worlds, you end up fighting with your siblings,
Yeah.
right? Like, I remember my kids telling me things, and the girls are like, oh, my brother did this. And I'm like, uh, yeah, I don't need to know about all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like, locking them out of the house or, having like a full on um, a grapple session,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I think that kind of happens. But when you have a lot of extra emotions that go along with the chaos in your family, I think that can kind of be targeted towards your siblings sometimes as
Yeah.
well. And then you all have different experiences in that too, right? We don't all have the same experiences. So I don't know the experience that my brother and sister had, right?
Right.
And I'm sure it was very different for them and unfortunately, maybe that's why my sister and I aren't super close,
Mhm. Mhm.
we get along great and everything, and I love her, but we're not super close, and I think there was a bit of a division there for obvious reasons,
Mhm.
and, so that being said, like, full on, I take full responsibility for being an absolute bitch sometimes, like,
Mm.
I was a little bratty,
Mhm.
snot, especially, like, junior high and high school, and honestly, high school came around and you grow so fast and your friends are your whole world, and
Yeah.
so I really separated myself from my brother and sister and my family. Like, I just spent a lot of time at friends' houses, boyfriends' houses, whatever,
Yeah.
and I really didn't get to know my brother and sister at that stage.
Right.
Like, I really didn't get to know them, their friends, and what they were going through and doing. Like, we just weren't close,
Yeah.
right? And, I'm glad they had each other for sure. I think it would have been a lot different. It was if there was just 2 of us, it would have been a little maybe more protective kinda
Mhm.
thing, but
Mhm.
they had each other, and so I felt like I didn't have to worry about them,
Yeah.
and but I chose not to get close to them either, right? They had their lives and their friends, and there was a age gap, and so
Mhm.
during that stage of my life, I really felt like when they were at home and I was gone, I just wanted to be away from the house, the chaos, the drinking and dealing with the unknown of what was going to happen in my house and my dad's.
Mhm.
So that really separated me from them.
Mhm.
And so I think there were times when I was just either oblivious or just completely
Well,
selfish
as
and
most teenagers
yeah,
are.
self-centered in my own little world, and really I didn't pay attention to them, right? and until he passes away.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, all of these emotions surfaced and all of this shame and guilt. And in that moment, and for years after, I felt like I should have treated him better. I think that is a common thing when people pass away.
Of
And
course.
you don't have to have trauma or whatever but when someone passes away, you go through the stage of grieving where you're like, I wish I would have. I should have said this. I should, like, you
Yeah.
should all over yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so it
Yeah.
was really hard to process all those feelings. It was really hard to go through those first few years.
Mhm.
And on top of that, I watched my sister lose her best friend. And that was tough for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes me a little emotional.
Yeah. I'm sure it
So,
does,
yeah.
Krista.
Yeah.
The thing is, even just you not bringing this up a couple of months
Hmm.
ago, or the fact that you haven't addressed this,
Yeah.
um, there's so many layers to
Oh,
this
yeah.
stuff. And like, you know, I think first and foremost, you were just trying to survive back then,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, like you said, we all shoulda, coulda, woulda to
Yeah.
ourselves, especially when we lose someone. But even just in your relationship with them before his passing,
Hmm.
with your sister, maybe after his passing, then your dad's passing, like there was
Hmm.
so much going on that I think it stands to reason that if you have that many layers, it's going to take that many layers to
Yeah. Oh,
get
yeah.
down to
Yeah.
the heart of the stuff,
Yeah.
right? And
And I was just
so,
in survival mode,
of
like
course you
the
were.
whole time, just pure survival
Of
mode. And
course you
so
were.
you don't, you can't, your self awareness isn't even there. And so you're not open to explanation of things or
Mhm.
of learning why you're doing the things you are, why
Mhm.
your behaviors are the way you are. So I think when you're in that mode, you really just are doing things on autopilot almost and
Totally.
without thinking about consequences sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, that's very true.
And so now here you guys are as adults,
Hmm.
and there's probably lots of conversations that have been left unsaid, right?
Oh yeah, between me and my
Yeah.
sister. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we've had some conversations.
Mhm.
And I think honestly, yeah, I'd love to have a closer relationship with her. And I love her dearly. And she's living her life. And I really think that we are also in a place where we respect each other. And I'm so happy for her. And she's remarried and she has a great life. And
Mhm.
she just has a new grandson. So that is
Yeah.
so exciting. And he is so cute. So I'm super happy for her because I got to have that feeling too. And when you feel that, you just that it's something
Mhm. You know
special.
how
So
amazing that
yeah.
is.
So I think we're at a place too where I'm okay with
Mhm.
it, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm really okay that we're not super close.
Mhm.
That being said, like if something happens, we reach out to each other right
Yeah.
away, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, um, like there was an incident. I don't want to go into it, but there was an incident and she called me right away and I'm like, I'm on my way. So we still have that kind of relationship.
Mhm.
We don't leave each other in the dark kind of thing. But
Mhm.
she has, her life, her and her husband are doing great and they travel and they love to they have their own, you know, um stuff going on in life and I'm really happy for them and it's awesome. And they're very supportive of me and my family and that's great. I think what I really want to bring up is how do we get to that point where we start to process all of the stuff that we're holding on to inside?
Yeah.
Like the family, especially because it's hard. It's an emotionally charged situation
Mhm.
sometimes. And so, how do you deal with that? How do you start to um, let go of some of that guilt you have over things that have happened in
Mhm.
relationships, some of the shame from your behavior.
Mhm.
And I know that as an adult child of an alcoholic, shame is a huge part of it. And you
Mhm.
hang on to things and behaviors that you did in the past, regardless of why you did them, because you were in survival mode, you
Mhm.
still hang on to that.
Yeah.
And it's not serving us.
Sure.
And so there comes a time, hopefully, in your life and in my life where I really wanted to process this stuff and work through it.
Yeah.
And there's some steps that you can do to make
Yeah,
that
for sure.
happen. Yeah.
We were talking, actually when we were away and talking about doing this. topic next. And one of the things that came up was, especially in a dysfunctional home, how is it that more than one sibling can grow up in the same home with the same
Mhm.
parents? And and but and you would think that that would bond you. You would think that that would pull you
Yeah.
together, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's the opposite, especially if you're not communicative as siblings,
Mhm.
and then you become like that as adults. Then it becomes like this sort of elephant in the room or something that you just don't talk about. And it's such a shame because it's like it's somebody who had a shared experience with you.
I know.
And it could be something that you guys could, if not bond on, at least like somebody there who was like witnessed what you
Yeah.
witnessed and tells you, okay, no, you weren't crazy.
Like,
That
find common
happened.
ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
common ground. And like that did happen. And,
Yeah.
we were talking about, like, I was saying that uh, Gabor Maté was
I
talking.
was just
Were
thinking it.
you?
Yeah, in my head, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
"Okay, I
yeah.
gotta throw that thing in
Yeah,
here
he was
because."
talking about it, and he was saying, like, because someone had said, "Well, this my son and my daughter were raised in the same house. How did this one go this
Yeah.
direction and this one go that direction?" And he said, like, they weren't raised in the same house, or at least they weren't raised with the same
No.
parents, because you show up in a different way for one child than you do for another.
Exactly.
And so I guess for you and for your sister and perhaps also your brother, all of your experiences could be very, very
Mhm.
different,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, something, or even just the way you recall something
Yeah.
might not be the way it was recalled by them or perceived by them, or,
Exactly.
so
Uh,
yeah, that was
yeah.
interesting. And that's kind of how this sort of evolved into a topic, was
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you really have to take that into consideration when you're thinking back on how your relations are to
Hmm.
your siblings and
Yeah.
how they may perceive things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
how was it for you? Like, you wanna share a little bit about your.
Ooh. Yeah, okay, sure. So, in my house, as you know, things were chaotic and dysfunctional and heightened. As that's like the
Mhm.
key word with my house,
Yeah.
was heightened. It's a little tough because my brother and I, yeah, we lived in the same house. We witnessed the same things. We probably internalized them differently. But part of the issue, I think, for me, and this is not, it's such a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Oh, we've talked about, like, how am I going to address this? And I want to. But I mean, I don't want to get into crazy, crazy detail, but the reality is I've tried to have this conversation with my brother, and
Mhm.
it's, for a lot of reasons, it's a tricky one. So let's go back, shall we? So my
I feel
brother.
like we need some to cue some music here.
Cue some music and scene. Set the
Yeah.
scene. So, like I said, grew up in a house where it was very heightened, and there was violence in my house. And, when I witnessed the violence, I turtled, right? Like, I kind of turned within
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
like we've said so many times, blended to the wallpaper, and just kind of, you know, be seen, not heard, kind of thing. And my brother, because of his personality, um, I'm sure didn't react the same way as me, but also, as a young man, or as a boy, witnessing a man and how a man was treating, the woman in
Mhm.
his life, his wife. Um, I think that that taught some things to my brother pretty quick on how to treat girls and women.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I do understand it. But the reality is my brother was very violent with me.
Mhm.
And, we talk about, oh, scraps, or like you said, like locking each other out of the house, and like some tussles. This was beyond tussles. Like there was violence.
Yeah.
And it was from the very beginning. And so, my memories of my brother are not good. And even to the point of struggling to remember good memories of my
Mhm.
brother growing
Mhm.
up, because it was all darkness, right?
Yeah.
And so fast forward to like teenager, and my parents moved away, and I stayed in Edmonton. We talked about that before. My brother was still in the city. And, but, that sort of dynamic between my brother and I was still going on, even as like a young adult.
Mm.
That was still there, that sort of propensity for violence, and just really overbearing. And I was still very kind of like, God, I think like almost, this is going to sound controversial, almost like battered woman syndrome.
Yeah. Well,
Do you know what I mean?
you start to build up a wall of defense,
Yeah,
and
and just sort of like
yeah.
the cowering and the sort of just give him what he wants, and then that way he'll just sort of back off kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so we had a moment where it was like I had kind of stood up for myself. I was just like, you know what? No more. Like, we're not doing this anymore. And if, one more hand on me, and the next thing you're
Mm.
going to get is a visit from the cops because I was done. Right.
Wow.
And which is wild that that was still happening as like a 18 or 19-year-old
Mhm.
girl, right? But that it was. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
So, and then 3 weeks later, he had a brain injury.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he
It
had an
was,
accident that
yeah, he
caused a
had an
brain
accident that caused
injury.
a brain injury. And then the guilt of like, I literally just cut this person out of my life and was just like, I'm done with you. I don't want any more to do with you.
Yeah.
You're out of my life. I've put up with you long enough. You're like the monster of my childhood. Although I never said those words to him, but he was. And then 2, 3 weeks later, he's in the hospital in a coma. And just the guilt of that and of like, not that I did it, but just like that was my last
Yeah.
interaction with him was something really awful. And so he came out of that, thank God. Like it was kind of a wild situation, but he did. It was like a few years of recovery, and he's alive and well today, and that. But um, there were some gaps in his memory,
Mm.
and but not a lot. Like really, it was like long-term memory was excellent, but short-term memory wasn't great, and
Right.
that just had to do with a part of his brain that was affected. But interestingly, the day that I wanted to have, and like years later, like I'm
Mhm.
talking probably only like 10 years ago, where some of this stuff came up, and I was, and it kind of said something to him about it, like, hey, how about that? Right.
Mhm.
And oh no, I don't remember that. It's like, okay, that's interesting.
Conveniently, or like, what did you think?
I didn't believe him.
Oh,
I don't believe
yeah.
him because,
Yeah.
you know, based on kind of what we knew about his healing, the long-term memory was fine. He could
Mhm.
tell you what weather it was on whatever day that he went to
Yeah.
somewhere. But, when I'm asking him about an entire chunk of our lives growing up in the same home, and oh, yeah, I don't remember. Right. And so that causes some bitterness for me.
Mhm.
And, God, I just suddenly had this moment of like, I'm saying all this stuff out loud, Krista. Like, we don't
Well,
talk
it's
about this.
healing.
Yeah, I know. It's healing, but it's also like I'm obviously still resentful, and so I hear you talking about, this relationship you still have with your sister, and there's mutual respect. And my brother and I do have a relationship as well, and
Mhm.
it's fine as long as that stuff's not addressed, right?
Right.
So it's
Right.
fine, and he's very generous, and
Mhm.
he calls once in a while, and we talk, and everything's fine. But for me personally, and if I'm being very honest, there's this underlying simmering resentment still
Mhm.
because he's a big part of what I grew up with. It wasn't just my parents. It wasn't just that dynamic and stuff. It was also my brother was a big part of that. And so
Mhm.
one day we're going to have that conversation. And, maybe the next time we have that conversation, it's like, I'm not going to let him off the hook that easily
Yeah.
and just say, no, I think you probably do. So let's talk about it.
Let's
And like,
let's unpack a little bit.
but also it brings to mind the question, why, Shannon? Why? Why do you need
Yeah.
that? I don't know why I need that. I think I need it because I need to be seen. I think I need, do I need an apology from him? Well, he could easily say, oh, yeah, you know what? I was kind of an asshole. Sorry about that. I'd be like, okay, thanks. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that I think I
Yeah.
need. I think I just need to be heard. I think I need to be able to hear him say the words back and say,
Mhm.
yeah, I do remember that. And that must
Yeah.
have been awful to grow
Like,
up in that.
validated, right? Yeah.
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 And that I wasn't crazy and
Yeah.
that I didn't like make that up in my head
Right.
and like that wasn't that was beyond the norm of like,
Right.
you know, teenagers in the same home or young people
Yeah.
in the same house not getting along. Like it
Yeah.
was to me anyway, it was so far beyond that
Mhm.
that it informed everything about what I thought about myself. And like one of the things like I've done writing about that too. And one of the things is like saying like every time I heard in my brain, like, "You're not enough, you're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly, you're whatever," is his voice.
Mm.
Because
Mhm.
that's what I grew up with. It wasn't
Yeah.
just physical abuse, it was verbal abuse, it was
Yeah.
emotional, right? And so that, like, that's part of where that resentment comes from. It's just like, "Well, you knocked me around a lot, and I want you to
Mhm.
own it." It's more like, "I want you to know what that did to me. I want you to know what
Right.
that did to me as a young girl, as a young woman, how it even informed the type of man I chose probably,
Mhm.
or how I steered clear of people." I don't know. So yeah, it's really, really complicated. And
Mhm.
so, did we grow up in the same house, seeing the same things and witnessing the same stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Um, and did we sort of process that differently? Obviously, yeah, we did. But the other layer of it is that he's part of it for me.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, there's like this sort of underlying thing for us, I think, that's still yet to be, that
Mhm.
part of the story is yet to be written.
Yeah. So I
You
have a
know?
question for you. This
Uh-huh.
might, I mean, we can cut this if you want, but
Okay.
um, this is like Coach Therapy 101 for Krista and
Oh,
Shannon.
shit. Okay, hang on.
um,
What?
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Um, The part of you that needs to be seen and validated, I completely understand.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to be seen and heard,
Yeah.
right? We want our lives to be witnessed in a way that we feel like we can be accepted and we're okay,
Yeah.
right? But I think that underneath all that validation that you want from your brother, and I kind of learned this in my own way too with my sister,
Mhm.
and the stuff that sits within me is more of what I need to address.
Mhm.
So, do you believe that you're all of those things? All of the questions that you ask yourself and you hear your brother's voice,
Yeah.
all of those have the opportunity to be resolved within your own voice. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
And that, like, I don't know the question. I feel like, specifically with my sister, I
Mhm.
feel like I had to do the work and find my own validation.
Mhm.
I feel like I had to find a way to let go of any shame, guilt, and resentment that I felt
Mhm.
towards her. It doesn't mean we won't ever have a conversation. Maybe we will about
Mhm.
it, and that's fine. I welcome that. But if we don't ever have that conversation, I
Mhm.
need to let go of the stuff, and only I have the power to do that.
Yeah.
The choices are fully mine to release what I'm holding on to. So, for you, I all I ever want is for you to find the space where you're like, I don't need his validation. I need mine. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. It does make sense. I think it's what you and I talked about before, which is like the peace is in us. Like
Hmm.
that's where the peace has to come from.
That's right. Yeah.
It doesn't have to come from hearing what I want to hear from him,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And probably same for you. And it's just that you're there already with your sister, I think, and I'm just quite not quite.
Well, I think I don't know if I'm there. I'm at a place in my own heart and soul where I feel this kind of deeper sense of peace that I didn't feel before.
Mhm.
And so now that I feel that, I when things come up, I feel like I can release it easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It kind of comes to the surface. I feel it and I think about it
Mhm.
and I think, is it a resentment? Is it this? Is it that?
Mhm.
Um, but I know within myself that I'm the only one that has to be okay with me. That is not an easy thing to do. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time, and what we do, talk about it, and like you write things, which is beautiful, and that helps you
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I think and the way that you're describing it, I'm already there with my mom, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And I think that the difference is I probably will get there with my brother,
Mhm.
but I think the thing with my mom is like what was the turning point, and this is just the way I think I am. The turning point with my mom was the day we were able to have a conversation that
Mm,
was real, and where my mom wanted to hear. She's like,
right.
"Okay, tell me.
Yeah, yeah. She
Tell
was
me."
ready
She was
to.
ready to hear me and receive it, and apologize for her part in it. And it wasn't even that I needed the apology. I just needed her to hear it and to
Mhm.
understand it. And like you said, we all just want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And with my brother, that opportunity isn't there because
Right.
he's not willing to say he remembers or that it
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I feel stuck in that particular
Mhm.
relationship because I feel like I don't need, like I said, I don't need him to say, God, I'm really sorry. And what a dick I was. And it's not that. I
Right.
need him to just hear it and acknowledge it and see me and hear me and know, okay, this was real for her. And this is the part that I played in that.
Mhm.
And then maybe we can, we already have moved forward. Like that's the other thing too, is like, it's like there's the surface level and then there's the underlying thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, he's a man, so he's clueless in general, I think. So he probably doesn't really know much about what's underlying there. But
Right.
on the surface, we do get along. We do chat on the phone. He does pop by once in a while when he's in town, and it's fine. It's great. It's me who needs to like be able to put away the other stuff. And so, it's also what you and I were saying too is like we're all going to be at different places
Yeah.
and where this person is or where that person or where you or where I am, we're not necessarily in the same spot, but we all have the same goal, which is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to be at peace.
And maybe you feel this because of the work that you've been doing too, is that you're at the point where when that day comes
Mhm.
and you're able to have that just even be heard, it might
Mhm.
not be a mutual, like, might not be a back and forth conversation. It might just be you expressing in his presence.
Yeah.
But when you get to that level, all of the stuff that you're doing,
Mhm.
you're going to be there that day and you're going to be like, that was the last piece of the puzzle. And now I am free.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
If you would have gone to that place a while ago,
Mhm.
it would not have been the
No.
same. Does
No,
that?
it wouldn't. It
Yeah.
wouldn't. It would have been really angry and
Yeah.
scratchy and and probably unproductive for sure.
Right.
And so maybe the whole point is that I just haven't been ready
Yeah.
to have that
Yeah.
conversation with
Yeah.
him. And so, I feel ready. Like despite how it looks here with my like tears and whatever, I do feel ready to have that
Yeah.
conversation with him. I don't know that he's just ready to receive it quite yet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
like I
that's
said,
really intuitive of you to
yeah.
and self-aware of you to understand that part. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
Like what you just said
Yeah.
was literally like the answer to the question I was trying to ask.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And you want to know something else, which was so wild, is because I knew we were talking about this weekend. And one day this week, he messaged me crazy early, like before I was even up for work. He sent me a message because where he works, he's up really early. And he sent me this message that was, I don't even know what it was like about forgiveness. It was like basically just something like his thoughts, like his stream of thought. And he must have been ruminating on something.
Mm-hmm.
Is it connected to anything about this? I don't know because I was like, "The hell are you talking about?" Like,
Interesting.
but he sent this whole thing that was about I can't even remember now, but it was kind of around forgiveness and around
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. And I was just like, "What are you talking about? Like, is this?" He's like, "No." He's like, "It wasn't not about anything in particular." And I'm like, are you talking about me? Like what?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, no, this is what he does is just sort of like send shit. And, sometimes takes me a while to kind of get around to like, what are you,
Yeah.
what are you
Yeah.
talking about? What are you
Yeah.
getting at?
Yeah.
But this thing he sent to me was like well written and quite profound. But I was just like, is he listening to like,
Yeah. Did
because
he just drop a line in the
what
water?
the heck is that? Yeah, like he
Yeah.
sent this thing that was like, it was almost like opening a door to like
Mhm.
that conversation, and so I was just kind of like on my end going, I don't know that he knows what he's saying, but if I can actually respond to this one of two ways,
Yeah.
and I decided not to get into it at 6:30 in the morning, but I thought, okay, so maybe he's just sort of like, maybe he's ruminating on stuff too.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to like give me an opportunity to ask him some
Yeah.
questions or,
Well, and everyone's brain works differently too. And given men and women think very differently about
yeah.
things, but we all come to our realizations
Mm-hmm.
in different ways and at different points in our life, for
Yeah.
sure. And
Right.
we don't always recognize each other's ways, but it could be, a light. So that could be huge and take
Maybe.
it for what it is,
Yeah,
right?
we'll
Like maybe,
see.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, it was
Yeah.
it was interesting. So Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
I love it.
Thanks for
So
letting me blurt that out.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very freeing too when we talk about stuff like this because I always
Mhm.
leave these conversations like literally feeling lighter,
I
like
know.
physically and emotionally and mentally, I feel lighter.
Yeah.
And tears are not like, honestly, this is what bringing this stuff out into the open and actually vocalizing it does for you.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to, I wanted to ask you a couple points and I have a couple things at work too, but
Mhm.
what are some of the things that have really helped you process your thoughts on resentment and
Mhm.
past things that you hold on to, like past
Yeah.
feelings? Like give our audience a couple examples
Yeah.
of what you would do or what you would
Mhm.
suggest that have helped you.
Yeah. Well, writing for
Yeah,
me.
for you.
Writing is the big one for me. And sometimes it's sort of like an essay in a way. Sometimes it's poetry or, sometimes it looks like a journal, I guess. But yeah, sometimes for me, it's like if I'm ruminating on something, I just kind of have a moment of just like, well, I got to get this shit out. And then I'll just write it real quick. Like on my phone is where I do it. I know you like pen to paper,
Yeah,
but I do it on my phone and I have a section in my phone. Um, I was just going to say, if I ever die, that's where you can find it to
exactly. She'll have
post
to give me all the lock codes.
so that you can write my memoir.
Exactly.
Um, anyways, you already know my lot code, by the way.
Yes, I do.
But anyways, yeah, writing is the big one for me. And I don't know, it just helps me sort through things. Sometimes it's like I get all of these thoughts and it feels like they're swirling. And then once I get it down, then I can read through it and sort out how I actually feel about
Hmm.
something. And then I'll go back and I'll sort of revisit it or I'll revise it or I'll add something to it. And then once it's interesting, once it looks like it's
Hmm.
complete to me, is when I'm like, okay, I'm done talking about that now. And then I feel good, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Shannon's a writer, though. So keep in mind, that's what she loves to do. Like, I know
Yeah.
you are a writer. I've read some of your stuff and I'm like mind blown. Like, she
Aw,
should totally write a book. Like, it's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, my
You are a
book, When I
beautiful
Die,
writer.
that's
Yeah,
what you're going to
exactly.
publish.
I'm going to publish it.
All the poetry.
So do you feel like after you write it down, you're more inclined to talk about it? Like even
Yeah.
if it's with me, but it's easier
Yeah.
to talk about out
Yeah.
loud because not everyone can vocalize their feelings
Yeah.
or their thoughts. So it's kind of like a step-by-step process,
Totally.
right?
For me, it
Yeah.
is like I write it and then once it's out, like even just the conversation we just had about my brother or even
Hmm.
you about your brother,
Yeah.
right? That's a particular topic that I don't visit that often and neither do
Yeah.
you. And so to actually be putting words to it, it's not, it's emotional because it's like sort of untapped
Yeah,
a little bit,
exactly.
right?
But it's
But
very cathartic.
yeah, it is.
Very
But the
cathartic.
writing part of it, yeah, like
Yeah.
once I get that out and I have it written and it's there and then I'm like, okay, well
Hmm.
yeah, that makes sense. And then sometimes I make connections like, oh, well this is how I feel and then I wrote about this before and like, okay, I'm starting to see that that's why I feel like that.
Yeah.
Like I'll sort of connect my pieces of writing and so for me that it makes it easier to talk about
Yeah.
once it's out in the open for sure.
Yeah. I
Yep.
think we have the answers within us.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
truly believe that. It's just, it doesn't always come to us in like a beautifully written
Mhm.
essay. It comes in bits and pieces. And then when we can reflect, that's when we get those little nuggets of wisdom
Yeah.
and we have more self-awareness and we're like able to process the stuff. When I do journal, it's more like a brain dump and I just get the thoughts out. Like they don't need to make sense to me. They don't need to be in poetry and haiku. It just has to come out. And for me, that is cathartic. So if you journal, if you brain dump, if you write poetry or a complete novel, whatever it is to you, getting that out on paper is super important. But also, how do we process what we're hanging on to in our body?
Mm.
So for me, I really didn't know a lot about somatics for a long time. At least I didn't make the connection between the unprocessed trauma and emotions that we hold in our muscles,
Yeah.
in our tissues, and our cells to getting that out. I have started to do these little exercises. I found a couple people online. It's called somatic release. So if you want to look it up on YouTube or on like Instagram, there's just lots of people who do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Like exercise is somatic. So if you lift weights or run or walk or do stretching or yoga or some sort of body movement, that is literally processing stuff in your body. But the somatic release techniques are really so much more intentional for me.
Mhm.
So you can go online and find the stuff that is like movements, like kind of
Mhm.
side to side and like moving your body up and
Mhm.
down kind of thing. And you're really just processing all of that and allowing it to flow.
Yeah.
I absolutely love doing this. It's like literally a little 5-minute routine in the morning
Mhm.
or in the evening that I do. And I just feel the energy moving in me.
Mm.
I feel like it's actually releasing out of
Yeah.
my body. And
Right.
it's hard to explain that feeling, but once you start adopting a little routine like that and practicing these things,
Mm.
you start to realize that you're making more space in your body for more peace and more calm and
Mhm.
more resilience and just the ability to show up for yourself in a different way.
Y
So that might be a great way for people to start processing some of the past stuff we hang on to, maybe with our siblings or
Yeah.
maybe in past relationships or
Yeah.
with our parents or whatever. So I
Mhm.
think we just hold the key within us to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have to put our power in someone else. We can
Exactly.
take that back.
Exactly, and that was
And
kind of the whole point when we were first talking about this was,
mm,
like, at the end of it all, the answer is already within us. The peace is
yes.
already within us to
Hmm.
get. Like, we don't have to, like, give the power to somebody, like, "I need you to say sorry, and then I can be at peace.
That's
I need
right.
you to acknowledge, because then I'll be at peace." And that's kind of where I'm kind of at the doorway of that, where it's
Yeah,
like, I need to decide, I guess, what I need to hear or not hear or
mhm,
whatever it is that needs to happen, regardless of what I receive back.
that's right.
The actual
Yeah,
peace is coming from me saying it.
yeah, yeah,
It's not from what I'm gonna hear back.
yeah.
That's where my peace is gonna come from,
That's right. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, girl. High
Yeah.
five.
Awesome. So, yeah, so that's what we got today. And if this resonates with you, please share it with someone that you love. If you want to reach out to us and chat, I know that some of the topics that we talk about aren't the easiest to reach out and or leave a comment or whatever, and I appreciate that. If you want to DM me and let me know how you're feeling or if this helped you in some way, that would be awesome. We are also on YouTube. And you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple or wherever you find your podcast streaming.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just so grateful that you joined us today. And I'm so grateful for these conversations that I have with
Me
Shannon.
too.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always feel lighter, always grow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.